First contact's price. The freighter Artemis hung in high orbit above New Singapore, its holds packed with the last surviving examples of pre-Exodus Earth art. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the bridge viewport, watching the pearlescent swirls of atmosphere below, while mentally calculating the fortune in ancient paintings and sculptures that made up her cargo. After the climate wars had destroyed most of Earth's cultural heritage, every surviving piece was practically priceless. "Captain, we're picking up an approaching vessel," her sensor officer reported. "Configuration unknown, not matching any registered designs." Sarah frowned. Unknown ships usually meant pirates, but this far inside Coalition space. Defensive screens up. "Show me." The holographic display revealed an elegant craft that seemed to flow like liquid metal. Its hull bore intricate patterns that shifted and changed as she watched. Definitely not human manufacture. "They're hailing us," communications announced. On screen, the alien that appeared was humanoid, but clearly not human. Tall and willowy with iridescent skin that rippled with colors like oil on water. Its large eyes were completely silver, without pupils or iris. "Greetings, Captain of the Artemis," it said in perfect English. "I am Collector Varine. You carry items of great interest to me." Sarah kept her expression neutral. "I'm Captain Chen. We're on a registered transport mission. Our cargo manifests are in order." "Oh, I'm not concerned with your paperwork, Captain." Varine's head tilted at an unnaturally fluid angle. "I'm interested in the contents. Human cultural artifacts are extremely rare. Your cargo represents one of the largest collections still in existence." "These pieces belong to the Coalition Museum of Earth Heritage," Sarah said firmly. "They're not for sale." Varine's skin flickered with patches of deep purple. "You misunderstand. I'm not here to purchase them. I'm here to collect them. My species are the greatest preservers of civilizations in known space. We safeguard the legacy of countless worlds. Your artifacts would be much better protected in our archives." Sarah's hand drifted to the ship's defense controls. "These pieces are already being preserved. They're humanity's heritage. A heritage your kind nearly destroyed," Varine countered. "We've observed how carelessly humans treat their history. These treasures deserve better guardians. That's not your decision to make." The alien's skin darkened to midnight blue. "You're right. The decision was made long ago, when we were appointed custodians of galactic culture. Please power down your shields. Resistance will only risk damage to the artifacts." Sarah's jaw tightened. Those artifacts survived the burning of the Louvre. They made it through the flooding of the British Museum. They endured the long, dark years when humanity nearly lost everything. If you think I'm just going to hand them over to some self-appointed space librarian, you clearly don't understand humans very well. Varine's expression remained serene, but their skin rippled with frustrated reds. Your species' emotional attachment to physical objects is precisely why you cannot be trusted with their preservation. I had hoped you would be reasonable. Reasonable? Sarah barked a laugh. Lady, I'm being extremely reasonable. If you were human, I'd have already blown you out of my sky for threatening my cargo. How primitive, Varine sighed. Very well. We'll do this the difficult way. The alien ship's elegant hull began to shift and flow, extending crystalline appendages that glowed with building energy. Sarah slammed her hand down on the ship-wide comm. All hands, battle stations. Engineering, I need everything you can give the shields. Weapons, target those energy projectors, but do not fire unless I give the order. She turned back to the screen, meeting Varine's silvery gaze. Last chance to back off. These artifacts survived humanity at its worst. Trust me, they'll survive you too. The alien skin swirled with complex patterns. Fascinating. You would risk destruction to protect mere objects. They're not mere objects, Sarah growled. They're proof that humanity can create beauty even in our darkest hours. They're reminders of everything we almost lost, and everything we fought to save. They're our story, written in paint and stone and metal. And I'll die before I let anyone steal our story from us. Vareen studied her for a long moment. The energy buildup from their weapons began to fade. Perhaps, they said slowly, we have more to learn about humanity than we realized. Sarah kept her hand on the weapon's controls. Glad we could have this chat. Now get off my bridge and out of my orbit before I stop being reasonable. The alien's skin rippled with what might have been amusement. This discussion isn't over, Captain Chen. But I look forward to continuing it, under less hostile circumstances. As the alien ship gracefully turned away, Sarah let out a long breath. Something told her this wouldn't be the last she saw of Collector Vareen. But she'd meant what she said. Humanity's heritage had survived far worse than one pretentious alien. She'd make damn sure it survived this too. The collection game. 3 days after their first encounter, Sarah found Vareen waiting in her quarters aboard the Artemis. The alien collector sat in her reading chair as if it belonged there, skin shimmering with curious gold patterns. Most species would consider this an act of war, Sarah said, deliberately not reaching for her sidearm. Breaking into a captain's quarters. Most species would consider hoarding cultural treasures an act of selfishness, Vareen countered. Yet here we are. Sarah leaned against her desk, studying the alien. How did you get past our shields? The same way I'll eventually get to your cargo. Vareen's skin rippled with something like smugness. Superior technology. Though I must admit, your engineers are remarkably creative with their modifications. It took me 3 attempts to breach your outer defenses. Get out of my chair, Sarah said flatly. Vareen rose with liquid grace. I've been studying your personal collection. They gestured to the small shelf of actual paper books, precious antiques Sarah had spent years acquiring. Fascinating how humans cling to obsolete information storage methods. Says the alien trying to steal our paintings. Sarah moved to check her books, making sure nothing was missing. What do you really want, Collector? You could have taken the cargo while I slept if you're really so superior. I want to understand. Vareen moved closer, silver eyes reflecting the cabin's soft lighting. In all our centuries of collecting, we've never encountered a species so emotionally attached to their artifacts. Even those who resist usually do so out of pride or greed. But you, their skin shifted to thoughtful blue. You truly believe these objects have value beyond their historical significance. Sarah ran her fingers along the spine of her copy of Fahrenheit 451. Every piece of human art that survived the dark years is a miracle, not because of what it is, but because of what it represents. Hope, determination, the refusal to let our culture die even when our world was burning. Yet you keep them locked in vaults and shipping containers, Vareen observed. How does that honor their significance? We're taking them to be displayed, to remind people where we came from and what we overcame. Sarah turned to face the alien. But you already knew that. You've been tracking our shipment for weeks, haven't you? Vareen's skin flickered with surprise. How did you? Because I've been tracking you right back. Sarah smiled grimly. Did you think humans survived first contact with 17 different alien species by being unobservant? We noticed your kind watching our recovery efforts, cataloging our remnants. We just didn't know why until now. The alien skin darkened. You've been studying us. Turnabout's fair play. Sarah moved to her terminal and brought up a series of reports. 6 suspicious losses of human artifacts in the past year, all attributed to accidents or theft, all involving ships that reported seeing craft matching your configuration before the incidents. We are preserving your heritage, Vareen insisted, but their skin swirled with defensive patterns. You're stealing it, Sarah corrected, and I want to know why. What makes human artifacts so special that you'd risk diplomatic incidents to acquire them? Vareen was silent for a long moment. Your art. It contains something we've never seen before. An element we cannot quantify or replicate. It resonates with frequencies we didn't think possible in physical matter. Sarah frowned. What are you talking about? Human creativity generates unique energy patterns, Varine explained, their skin pulsing with excitement. Your art doesn't just represent beauty, it contains it, stores it, in ways we've never observed in any other species. We must understand how this is possible. So you're not just collectors, Sarah said slowly. You're researchers. We are seekers of truth. Varine moved to the viewport, staring out at the stars. My people have preserved the cultural heritage of 1,000 dead civilizations, but none of them created art like humans do. Even your simplest works contain complexities we cannot fully analyze. Sarah joined them at the viewport. That's because you're trying to quantify something that can't be measured. Human art isn't about energy patterns or frequencies. It's about feeling, expression, the drive to create something meaningful even when the world seems meaningless. Perhaps that is why we need to study it, Varine said softly. My people have lost the ability to create true art. We preserve, we collect, we analyze, but we no longer know how to make beauty of our own. Sarah looked at the alien with new understanding. Is that why you're really here? Not to preserve our art, but to learn how to make your own again. Varine's skin swirled with complex emotions. I am not authorized to discuss such matters. Right. Sarah smiled slightly. Well, since you're so interested in human culture, here's a human saying for you. Sometimes the direct approach works better than sneaking around. Meaning? Meaning if your people want to learn about human creativity, try asking. We might surprise you. Varine's skin flickered with consideration. My superiors would not approve of such directness. Your superiors aren't here, Sarah pointed out. You are. So what do you want to do? The alien was quiet for a long moment, their skin shifting through shades of uncertainty. Finally, they turned to Sarah with renewed purpose. Tell me, Varine said, about beauty. Hidden values. Sarah woke to blaring alarms. Report. Multiple ships dropping out of FTL. Her first officer's voice crackled through the comm. Configuration matches Collector Varine's vessel, but bigger, much bigger. She was on the bridge in minutes, still pulling on her uniform jacket. The tactical display showed 5 crystalline ships surrounding the Artemis, each one at least 3 times the size of Varine's craft. Where's our friendly neighborhood art thief? Sarah demanded. Their original vessel is still shadowing us at distant range, sensors reported. These are new players. The main screen lit up with the image of another collector. Unlike Varine's shifting colors, this one's skin was a rigid metallic gray. Its silver eyes seemed colder, more artificial. Captain Chin. It said, voice like grinding crystal. I am High Curator HFY. You will surrender your cargo immediately. Sarah glanced at the tactical display again. They were outgunned, but the Artemis had a few tricks left. I was just having a lovely conversation with one of your collectors about asking nicely. Collector Varine has been deemed compromised, HFY said. Their unauthorized interactions with your species have been noted and will be corrected. The preservation of cultural artifacts is too important to risk on individual initiatives. Corrected. Sarah's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? It means, Varine's voice cut in as their smaller ship suddenly appeared between the Artemis and the lead curator vessel, that my people have forgotten the difference between preservation and stagnation. HFY's skin darkened to gunmetal. Stand down, Collector. Your function has been suspended. My function. Varine's voice crackled with emotion. Is that all we are now? Functions. When did we stop being artists ourselves? When did we stop creating and only start collecting? You know why, HFY said. The Great Discord nearly destroyed our civilization. Unfettered creativity led to chaos. Only through perfect order could we survive. Sarah watched the exchange with growing understanding. That's why you're so interested in human art. You didn't just lose the ability to create. You deliberately gave it up. We evolved beyond it, HFY corrected. Creativity is a primitive force. Dangerous. unpredictable. And yet, Varine countered, these primitives survived the near destruction of their world and emerged stronger. Their art didn't weaken them. It saved them. It gave them hope, purpose, identity. Their art contains dangerous resonance patterns, HFY insisted. We must study and contain it before. Before what? Sarah interrupted. Before it inspires your people to think for themselves again. The High Curator's skin rippled with barely controlled patterns. You cannot understand. You did not see what unrestricted expression did to our world. The chaos. The madness. Every piece of art became a weapon. Every creation a potential catalyst for destruction. So you locked it all away, Sarah said softly. Not just the art, but the very ability to create it. You turned yourselves into living vaults. We survived, HFY stated. You stopped living. Varine's ship moved closer to the Artemis. Captain Chen showed me something in her quarters. A book about people burning books, destroying art, because they feared its power to change minds and hearts. Sound familiar, Curator? Sarah noticed her tactical officers silently signaling. They'd managed to get a weapons lock on the Curator's ship's main drive systems. She gave a subtle nod but held her fire. This wasn't just about protecting her cargo anymore. Your human art is a threat to our stability, HFY declared. Its resonance patterns are already affecting Collector Varine's behavior matrix. We cannot allow it to spread. It's not the art affecting me, Varine said. It's the truth behind it. The proof that creation doesn't have to lead to destruction. That beauty can survive darkness. That expression can heal instead of harm. Impossible. HFY's skin had gone completely rigid. The equations are clear. Unrestricted creativity inevitably leads to chaos. Maybe, Sarah spoke up, you've been solving the wrong equation. You're so focused on controlling art that you've forgotten its purpose. It's not about restriction or preservation. It's about connection, communication, sharing what it means to be alive. And what would primitives know off? HFY began, but Varine cut them off. Show them, they said to Sarah. Show them what you showed me. Sarah smiled slightly. You sure? Might be dangerous. Lots of resonance patterns. They need to understand, Varine insisted. They need to remember. Sarah nodded to her communications officer. Moments later, a simple melody filled the command channel. A child's music box playing a lullaby that had survived the dark years. Following it came images, cave paintings from humanity's dawn, Renaissance masterpieces, digital art from the pre-war era, and finally, the new works being created as humanity rebuilt. This is your heritage too, Sarah said to the watching curators. Not just the art itself, but the drive to create it. The need to make something beautiful even in the darkest times. You didn't evolve past it. You just forgot how to listen. On the screen, HFY's rigid surface began to show the faintest ripples of color. Trading places, the lullaby's final notes faded into silence. For a long moment, no one spoke. Sarah watched the High Curator's skin continue to ripple with unauthorized colors, breaking through centuries of rigid control. Then all hell broke loose. Containment breach, one of the Curator ships announced. The resonance patterns are spreading through the collective network. Cut all connections. HFY ordered, their metallic surface now swimming with chaotic cues. Isolate thee. Too late, Varine's voice held a note of triumph. They're remembering, Curator. All of them. Every collector, every curator, every guardian of our great archives. They're remembering what it felt like to create. Warning signals blazed across Sarah's tactical display. The Curator ships were experiencing some kind of power fluctuations, their crystalline forms shifting and flowing in ways that seemed almost organic. Captain, her engineer called up. Those ships are generating some kind of energy field. It's like they're singing. What have you done? HFY demanded, their own form beginning to lose its rigid shape. The containment protocols. We're wrong. Varine cut in. They were always wrong. We didn't need to contain creativity. We needed to understand it, to balance it, just as the humans learned to do. Sarah's sensor officer suddenly shouted, multiple ships dropping out of FTL. They're coalition vessels. A new voice joined the channel. Artemis, this is Admiral Chen. Sorry we're late to the party. Little sister. Sarah grinned. Your timing's perfect as always, Maya. Though I had things under control. Sure you did. That's why you activated the emergency beacon I gave you. That was hours ago. Where were you? Getting reinforcements. The Admiral's voice held a smile. Seems our collector friends have been causing trouble all across Coalition space. When we tracked their communications back to their hub systems, we found something interesting. Want to tell them? Dr. Zhang. A new face appeared on the screen. An elderly Chinese woman with kind eyes and a stern expression. We discovered that the collector's entire civilization is built on synchronized neural networks. They're all connected, sharing thoughts and memories through what they call their collective architecture. It's how they maintained their rigid order for so long. And now that architecture is breaking down, Vareen said. Because you showed us something we couldn't simply categorize and contain. You showed us art that lives. The curator ships were still fluctuating, their crews presumably experiencing the same breakdown of control as Anxville, whose form had become almost liquid. You don't understand. Anxville's voice was strained. The discord, it will return. We cannot control. Maybe you're not supposed to. Sarah interrupted. Maybe art isn't about control. It's about learning to live with the chaos, to find beauty in it. The resonance, one of the curator ships reported. It's changing frequency, stabilizing into music, Vareen finished. They're not just remembering how to create, they're remembering how to harmonize. Dr. Zhang's eyes lit up. Fascinating. Their neural network isn't breaking down. It's rewriting itself, finding a new pattern. Like humans did, Sarah said softly. After the dark years, we didn't survive by controlling art or locking it away. We survived by letting it change us, heal us, remind us who we were and who we could be. The energy readings from the curator ships began to shift, their chaotic fluctuations settling into something more rhythmic, more purposeful. Their crystalline forms flowed like liquid metal, reshaping themselves into configurations that seemed both functional and beautiful. High Curator, Vareen's voice was gentle now. Let go. Remember what we were before the discord. Not just preservers of art, but artists ourselves. Anxville's form had almost completely transformed, their once rigid surface now rippling with complex patterns that seemed to respond to the harmonic energies flowing between the ships. I remembered, they said, their voice changing, becoming more musical. We were so afraid of what we could create that we forgot why we created in the first place. To connect, Sarah offered. To share. To make something meaningful out of the chaos. Yes, Anxville's pattern stabilized slightly. But how? How do we control it this time? How do we prevent another discord? You don't. Admiral Chen spoke up. You learned from it. Look at humanity's history. Every time art and creativity led to conflict, we didn't respond by shutting it down. We responded by creating more, understanding more, finding new ways to express ourselves without destroying each other. It's not about control, Vareen added. It's about balance, the harmony between order and chaos, preservation and creation. The energy readings continued to stabilize as the curator ships found their new configurations. Sarah watched in amazement as they transformed from rigid crystalline structures into flowing, organic forms that somehow maintained their function while expressing something more, something almost like joy. Captain Chen, Anxville's voice had found a new resonance. I believe we have much to learn from each other. Sarah smiled. Well, those artifacts in my hold were headed to a museum anyway. How about we discuss a cultural exchange program instead of a heist? Worth more than gold. 1 year later, New Singapore Museum of Interstellar Arts. Sarah stood before the grand opening crowd, trying not to fidget in her formal coalition uniform. Behind her, the museum's crystalline walls pulsed with gentle colors, a living artwork created through the collaboration of human architects and transformed collectors. When we first encountered the collector civilization, she began, we thought they were trying to steal our cultural heritage. In reality, they were trying to reclaim their own. In the front row, Varine's form shimmered with pleased patterns. They had become Earth's first cultural ambassador to the collector systems, helping bridge the gap between preservation and creation. Today, we open humanity's first joint museum with the Collector Archive Network. But this isn't just a place to display art, it's a place to make it. Every wall, every room, every display case has been designed to respond to the creative energies of both our species. She gestured to the main gallery, where ancient earth paintings hung in frames of living crystal. As visitors approached, the frames resonated with their emotions, creating subtle harmonies that enhanced the viewing experience. We learned something crucial from this partnership. Sarah continued, art isn't just about what we create, it's about how we grow through creating it. The collectors taught us how to preserve our heritage in ways we never imagined possible. In return, we helped them remember that preservation without creation is just another form of decay. High Curator Anxville, their once rigid form now flowing with elegant purpose, stepped forward to join her at the podium. Their skin displayed complex patterns that Sarah had learned to recognize as profound emotion. For millennia, they said, my people believed we had evolved beyond the need for artistic expression. We thought by controlling and containing creativity, we could prevent the chaos that once nearly destroyed us. We were wrong. The curator's skin rippled with new colors as they spoke. Humanity showed us that true evolution isn't about suppressing creativity. It's about learning to channel it, to use it not as a weapon, but as a bridge between worlds. Sarah watched as the museum's walls began to pulse in harmony with Anxville's patterns. Throughout the building, similar resonances were forming between human visitors and collector artifacts, creating spontaneous displays of interactive art. In that spirit, Sarah announced, I'm proud to reveal the museum's centerpiece, a joint project that represents everything we've learned from each other. The central chamber's doors opened, revealing a massive crystalline structure that seemed to float in midair. As the crowd watched, it began to shift and flow, responding to the collective emotional energy of everyone present. Within its translucent depths, images from human history merged with collector memory patterns, creating something entirely new. We call it the Living Archive, Anxville explained. It doesn't just preserve art, it creates new art from the interactions between our cultures. Every visitor adds to its complexity, its beauty. Varine moved to join them, their form harmonizing with the archive's patterns. A year ago, Captain Chen showed us that art isn't something to be locked away and studied. It's something that grows, changes, evolves with us. This museum is our attempt to honor that truth. Sarah smiled as she watched human children approaching the archive, their wonder and excitement causing it to produce spectacular light shows. Nearby, collector youth, something that hadn't existed before the Great Remembering, were learning to shape their own crystalline forms into expressive patterns. We still have our differences, Sarah concluded. Humans still create in chaos, while collectors seek harmony in all things. But we've learned that these differences don't have to divide us. They can inspire us. She turned to face the crowd fully. This museum isn't just a building or a collection. It's a promise, a commitment to keep creating, keep growing, keep finding new ways to share the beauty we see in the universe. Because in the end, that's what art really is. Not objects to be preserved, but moments of connection waiting to be discovered. The Living Archive pulsed with agreement, its patterns merging with the emotions of everyone present. In that moment, Sarah realized that the cargo she'd fought so hard to protect had led to something far more valuable than any individual artwork. It had helped two civilizations remember how to grow. As the ceremony concluded and visitors began exploring the museum's wonders, Sarah found herself standing with Faurine and Exable before a simple earth painting, one of the pieces from her original cargo. "Do you ever regret not stealing our artifacts?" she asked Faurine teasingly. The collector's skin rippled with amusement. "Why steal what can be shared? Besides, we found something far more valuable than artifacts." "Oh." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "Understanding," Exable answered, their form flowing like liquid starlight. "You showed us that the art isn't in the object. It's in the moment of creation, the act of sharing, the willingness to risk chaos for the chance to make something beautiful." Sarah watched as a group of human and collector children collaborated to create patterns in the crystalline walls, their laughter harmonizing with the museum's resonant fields. "Well," she said softly, "I'd say that's worth more than all the art in the galaxy." The living archive pulsed in agreement, capturing the moment in its ever-growing collection of shared experiences, not just preserving history, but creating it, one connection at a time.